Hey, welcome back to the channel, everybody. So I'm over here at the house in the garage, and I am going to try my hand at rendering wax for the second time ever. So if you watched the previous video, you'll see a very short version of me scraping down several deep frames into the 5-gallon bucket. I was out in the bee yard for probably over an hour scraping off all the frames. Very tedious job, very time consuming, but sometimes it's necessary. Alright, so last year I tried rendering some wax using a crock pot, and little did I know that water acts as a filter. So I didn't use any water. I just simply put the wax in the crock pot, turned it on, let it sit for a while, and I got about, I think about a pint. I had 3 pounds, no that's not right, I had a 2-gallon bucket of wax cappings and all, or beeswax. There's some air pockets and all, so it's not completely full, and that made 1 pint. So kind of the same thing with the 5-gallon bucket. It's not entirely full, there's some air pockets and everything, but curious to see how much wax this actually renders. So I will show you my setup here in a second. Yeah, actually let's do that real quick. Okay, here we go. So here's the setup. This is a shrimp boiling propane setup. We got the fuel right there. I am not entirely sure how big this pot is. It might be about 16 quarts or so, and I have maybe 4 to 5 inches of water in there. And then here is my 5-gallon bucket of wax, beeswax, that I scraped earlier from several deeps. I think about 4 deeps. Out of those 4 deeps, probably 80% of the frames ended up getting scraped. And there is a whole bunch of crap in here. You can see that there's an ant of some sort. There is old remnants of bees, probably some wax moths, whole bunch of nasty stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply take the beeswax, once I get the fire started and the water to a simmer, to a slow boil maybe, I'm going to add the wax to it, and it should melt down. And then I just picked this up from Walmart for $8, just a simple strainer, and I will scrape all of the crud that floats to the top off. And this takes a few times from what I've watched on YouTube myself. It's just a slow process, maybe 2, 3, 4 times, and the end result should be some nice pretty yellow wax. So I'm going to turn the camera off, get everything set up, and show y'all how things go. Alright, here we go. I'm going to turn on the gas, light the burner, and this thing, it's not bad, but it does have a drawback, which is it's only good for maybe 20 minutes at a time. It has a built-in timer. So let me go set the timer on my phone for about, I think it's like even 12 minutes maybe. Either way, it'll take probably a full 12 minutes before the water starts to boil or show that it's getting hot, and once it does I'll start adding some of the wax. Okay, it's been running for about 10 minutes, and if you can't see that, it looks like it's about 180 degrees. I just hit the button to restart the timer on the burner. So at this point, I can start adding wax. Stuff stinks, by the way. I'm going to add as much as possible just to maximize this first batch. I highly doubt I can get all this in there just because the pot is rather small. Again, not entirely too sure how big of a pot that is. I'm guessing maybe 16 quarts. I was going to do this in a few weeks after I get back from a trip, but I didn't want to run the risk of wax moths being in this wax, which I am 99% sure there are quite a few, and basically opening it up in a few weeks to just a mess. If you've never dealt with wax moths before, consider yourself lucky. They are an absolute nuisance and can wreak havoc on a hive in no time. There's probably some fishing line in here, or the metal wire used for foundationless frames. I did have a few. I tried to remove as much as possible, but I'm sure some's in here. Yeah, for instance, this is what I was talking about. So I'm going to try and just pull that out. Yeah, so this might just become the bucket I use when I'm out inspecting the hives, scraping off any burr comb. Just let it collect in a bucket over time. And when you get a full bucket, try and melt it down. This is just kind of a big old experiment, really. I've never done it like this before. Maybe good for now. It's about half of the 5-gallon bucket. So we'll see how this works. Alright, if the lighting isn't that great, I had to close the garage if you couldn't tell, because this was definitely attracting quite a few bees. So I just turned down the burner a little because I could hear the water boiling. So you just want kind of a nice simmer. You don't want it to really boil away. And now I'm just pushing everything that's sitting on top, all the wax and everything. Just going to push this down into the water. So from the few videos I watched on YouTube earlier today, the water just, it really acts as a filter. So once this is melted down, it'll be just kind of like a slurry. And then I can use the skimmer to remove the thicker stuff on top. And then at that point, you just want to let it cool. So you'll take it off the heat or just turn the burner off. And the bottom side of the wax will have all the crud, and the top should look pretty nice, clean. So yeah, that didn't take too long at all. Maybe about 5 minutes for the water to get hot enough and just really start melting down the beeswax. Yeah, this took no time at all. Maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes for the bees to find it. Yeah, from the videos I watched, it's just a little tedious process of cleaning the wax. You just want the water to get into all this thick, nasty stuff, which is everything from bee parts to dead outs, wax moths, a whole bunch of crud. So eventually I'll remove this and it'll start to look a little better. Like that's a whole patch of capped brood that was from the dead out. And it looks like I do have a little more room. I'm going to add just a little more wax cappings in a second. Alright, we're starting to come to the end of all the sludge. I'll show you just how much half a 5-gallon bucket produced. You can start to see how nice the wax might end up looking. This is a 2-gallon bucket. It's not entirely full, but maybe you can see that or not. But this is how much crap floated to the top. There's still a little more left, but as you can see, just using this strainer here, it's very, very little. Again, bit of a tedious process to get all the debris out, but that's step one. So since I have more room now, I'm going to add some more of the beeswax from the 5-gallon bucket and try to get all this done in one shot. Maybe at the same time I can get some of the bees out of the garage. Yeah, once I get done scooping the little bit that's remaining, I think I'll add the rest from the 5-gallon bucket and get the flame relit. Alright, that's good for now. Alrighty. That's all of it. So again, I'm just gonna slowly push all the beeswax, comb, if you want to call it that, down into the water. Let the water act as a filter, and just repeat the process as far as skimming all the debris out. And then that'll take us to the next step once I get all this cleaned up. I just finished scooping the rest of the remnants out, and from a full 5-gallon bucket of beeswax, it turns out, this isn't an exact science of course, but it turns out to be maybe about 2 gallons of sludge it produces. So now I just relit the burner. I'm gonna bring this up to temp and add about 2 quarts. And as you can see, there's still some sludge in here. I guess I can keep removing some in the meantime. But I'm gonna add about 2 quarts of clean water to the pot. And then at that point, all I really have to do is just let it cool down, and I'll show you what happens next after that. So it shouldn't take too long at all for the water to come to temperature. It's not a complicated process at all, it just takes a little bit of time. And I could be doing this entirely wrong, because first time I've tried doing it like this. So we'll see what happens. Okay, that does it for now. Now it's just a matter of letting it cool down. Alright, so here we are a day later. I just removed, let me get the camera right, I just removed the wax from the bucket. Cleaned out the bucket just a little, put some fresh water in there, and this is what we're looking at. I have not weighed it. I thought about weighing it just out of curiosity, but because of all the sludge and debris on the bottom, I'm just going to scrape this off, and once I get it to a point that I'm satisfied with, I'll put it back in the bucket of water, put it back on the burner, melt it back down, and let it cool overnight, and there should be less debris on the bottom side, and then just repeat the process until you're satisfied with it. So each time you do this, it'll become cleaner and cleaner, or more clean, and there should be less debris on the underside. It's a rather simple process. It does take some time, since you have to wait for about 24 hours or so until the wax hardens up, until you can get to this point. But if I can do it, anybody can do it. Alright, that only took a few minutes. I'm not going to dig really hard into the wax, because I can tell that I'm starting to actually get into the beeswax and not just knocking off the debris. So yeah, that just took a few minutes to knock off all the loose stuff. I'll fire up the burner here in a second and show y'all just adding the wax back into clean water. And like I said, it's just a matter of repeating this process until you're satisfied with the outcome. Alright, just wanted to make a quick update. So I have melted the wax down 3 times now, and here is the difference. So the previous time there was still some debris underneath the wax where it usually settles to where I could scrape it off and it was pretty hard. The difference this time is it's been out here drying for 24 hours and you can see it's still pretty soft on the underside. So I was going to dump the water out and fill it up with fresh water. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it looks like it just needs more time to solidify, to harden. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to melt it down again, which doesn't take too long, maybe about 20 minutes or so, and let it cool for maybe more than 24 hours, maybe 2 days or so, and see if that has any different effect on the wax drying. So not really much to see here. I'll turn the camera back on later, maybe after it's boiling away, to show you that. But I just wanted to share with you, this was the 3rd time rendering the wax. Removed a bunch of debris last time, not a bunch, but less than the time before. But this time around, I thought I could tell it was getting cleaner because the wax, if you can't tell, is becoming more like a brighter yellow. Probably because there's less trash, less debris in it. But for whatever reason, it didn't harden back up within 24 hours like the first and the second time melting it down. So like I said, I'm just going to turn the burner on and melt it down and give it a few days to solidify. Alright, let's take a quick look. Flame's been on for about maybe 10 minutes or so. And yeah, I'd say the water's coming up to temp. The block of wax is pretty soft. And yeah, the water easily melts the wax that's on the spoon. So like I said before, probably take about maybe 20 minutes to melt completely down. Same process over and over, nothing that exciting. I'll remove any debris if there is any, and just kind of repeat the process until satisfied. Alright, check back in a few minutes while it's actually, or once it actually gets to a boiling state, and show you how the wax looks after it's melted down. But yeah, nothing too exciting right now, just rinse and repeat. Alright, here we are. It's only been a few minutes since the last time and the water temp is picked up, and as you can see, the wax is melted down nicely with very little debris on the left side there, if you can see that. Very little debris floating, so not much to really scoop. I'm actually not going to even bother with scooping it. I'm just going to let it harden overnight, or maybe over the next few nights, since this past time I let it sit for 24 hours and it was still kind of soft on the sides and the underside. So I'm going to let this go for maybe another minute, turn off the heat, set it aside for probably 48 hours this time, and see if it hardens better than the last time where I let it only sit for 24 hours. Alright, here we are, just over 24 hours later. The wax has cured as much as it's going to. So this is the 4th rendition of the wax, and I believe this is the cleanest it is going to be. So some people commented on social media, I think mainly Facebook, saying that off the last post, the 3rd rendition, the wax is remaining kind of tacky because it's being broken down more than it should. So here's the deal. I don't plan on using this wax to make candles or anything like that. I only plan on using it to coat some of the new foundation that I have. So I'm going to put this into a crock pot, and if I can break this in half, yeah, that works out nicely. I'll break this in half, put it in the crock pot, and in a few hours it should melt down very nicely. And in fact, I will scrape off all the extra wax that has kind of settled onto the lid here. And then I think the last part of the video will be me showing you, just with a cheap paintbrush, how to coat some brand new plastic foundation with some wax that you've rendered from your hives. So tune in for that video, and that is exactly what I will do. And moving forward, because I don't think I'm going to use all the wax here, I will just let it cool and sit in the crock pot for future use. So once I remove the power from the crock pot, it should harden, and then for future use, just apply power, let it remelt, and then coat future plastic foundation with how much ever wax that you want, and just repeat the cycle until you don't have any wax left. Alright, back in the garage, I put the clean wax into the crock pot here. I had it on high for about an hour and then turned it down to low, which seems to do pretty well with melting it down into a completely liquid form. And then the next step, which will be the next part of the video, I just picked up some very, very inexpensive brushes from Walmart. I think these are about just around $1 each. 3 inches wide, which should do the trick for painting. Majority of the frames are medium supers, brand new frames, and then I got quite a few deeps over there, so it'll take maybe 2 or 3 passes, but didn't want to spend a lot on brushes since they're pretty much going to be a one-time use and discard them afterward. Alright, so the next part of the video, I will be doing exactly that. I'll be painting the frames with some of the wax. Alright, here we are at the final part of the wax rendering video. It has taken a while to make this video because it is quite a process, from scraping wax off the frames out of 4 deeps to cleaning it, which I ended up rendering down 4 times, but looking back at the videos and the posts, I think after 3 renditions you're completely fine. The wax was pretty clean at that point. And here we are. So I'm going to take the paintbrush and simply coat a brand new foundation. First time ever doing this, so not entirely sure how much wax it's going to take, but that seems to do the job quite nicely. Just like that. And the whole concept here, I've said it a few times, this should promote the bees to work new foundation a little faster than they typically would. Depending where you buy your foundation from, I think this came from Man Lake or Kelly. They do coat it with some beeswax, but I mean, who knows how much they use. And honestly, if you have some on hand like this, or just old wax you've been collecting and you're not really sure what to do with it, or if you don't know if you want to make soap or candles or anything like that, this is not a bad way to reuse some wax. So I'll just do another one real quick. Not complicated, does not require a lot of wax at all, and I think a little goes a long way. Here we go. Just enough to entice the bees to move onto the new frames and start drawing them out. And you don't have to worry about being too messy with this, because the bees will definitely, they'll figure it out. There we go. And I'll grab, this is a medium, I believe, yeah, medium super frame. Yeah, it's a little quicker. Obviously the frame's not as deep. So the four deeps that I scraped wax out of, where about 80% of the frames had wax to remove, that yielded 3 pounds of clean wax. So that does it. A little bit of a longer video, a lot of steps involved, but hopefully y'all like it. If you have any comments, please leave them below, and if you like the video, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you hit the bell, you'll receive notifications of future videos. So there you go. That's how easy it is to render wax yourself. If you have not tried this, I highly recommend it. Tedious process, but overall not too complicated. Alright, that does it for this video. Tune in to the channel for future videos like this and more weekly inspection videos. Thanks for watching, everybody.